Hello. So I have been so busy writing the final book, the Mark of the Great series, that I have not made a game in a long time, more longer than I'd like to admit. And so when I ran across a post of a mom looking for some puzzles for her son who was really enjoying it, I couldn't pass it up because if someone is loving math, we want to encourage that. So I took a few minutes today to create this game. Now, it could go much more in depth. We could do different levels, all sorts of things. This is a very basic version, which means every level is going to have a unique amount of difficulty, and hopefully it's pretty fun. So I wanted to take a second to show you how to play. So the idea of a sun grid is that in each of these cells, there is a digit. I made it from 1 to 9, so no zeros. And the numbers on the side tell us the sum of the cells in the column or the row. I did that a little bit backwards. So, in other words, this 13 is telling me that these three numbers need to sum to 13, while this 18 is telling me that this row, the four numbers in the row, need to sum to 18. And sometimes these might have more than one solution, and sometimes they're going to be really hard, and sometimes they might not be hard at all, which is sort of fun. It's like Sudoku in a way. So let's take a look. So I'm going to focus first on this row with 18. I included in the game a pin, so while I'm using the annotation feature on my computer, you can also use this to sort of take notes. So I see I have an 8 and a 2, so that already sums to 10. And then I have a 4, so that's 14. So that tells me I know that this guy here has got to be a 4. And so I can go ahead and click on it, enter it, click out to enter the box. The program that I use to make these games, of course, is GeoGebra, which means it does have its own keyboard, which you can use or not use. You can click the little keyboard on the bottom to use these to enter numbers, or you can simply type it in from your computer. All right, so now we have that. I'm going to go to the next most obvious row for me, which is this 18. So I have a 5 and a 4, and that tells me that this guy here is going to be a 9. 5 plus 4 is 9. I need 9 more to get to 18. Now, this is where it gets a little bit interesting because I'm not missing just one number anywhere. All of them have two numbers, and so this could get a little bit challenging. So let's see what we've got here. If I focus on this first row, I've got 19, and I already have a 5 and a 4, which I know adds to 9. So I know that these two boxes need to sum to 10. So you can kind of make a list of all the options, right? I could have 1 and 9, 2 and 8, 3 and 7, 4 and 6, or 5 and 5. And of course, those could go either way, a 1 in the first box, a 9 in the last, or the opposite. And there's a lot of problem solving and logic we can use to kind of decide about this. So it's up to you how deep you really want to go. Guess and check is also a totally valid way to solve. All right, in the last row, I need 23. I have 9 and 6, that's 15. So that means I need 8 more here. And if I look in this first column, I need to get to 13. I have an 8. So that means this needs to be a 5. Now that's really helpful because if I look at my first row where I wanted to make a 10, I cannot make this guy a 9 or an 8 or a 7 or a 6 or even a 5. So I've already narrowed this guy down to 1, 2, 3, 4, right? Because it can't be a 5. In this row, I need an 8. And those are kind of lower numbers, right? 1 and 7. I know this guy can't be a 7, things like that. And then in my final one over here, I'm out of unique colors, right? And this guy needs 17. I already have 4, so this is 13. So that's already going to help me a lot. When I have my smaller number in this first box, my bigger number is going to go in the second box, and that's going to work out well for me. So I could try, or I could use a little bit more problem solving. I could even solve this using algebra. So I'll show you really quick. If I were to solve it using algebra, maybe I let this guy here be A, this guy B, this guy C, and this guy D. Well, now I know that A plus B has to be 10, And I know that C plus D has to be 8. Oops, that's not a plus. I also know that A plus C is 5 and that B plus D is 13. And this is great. If you know about algebra, I've got 4 unknowns for things that I'm trying to find, and I've got 4 equations, so I can definitely solve it with these. I could subtract 2 of these and say that I know B minus C has to be 5. So those are my 2 corners. I know that if I take C away from B, that has to be 5. And I could go through this to solve. But since this was made for a younger child, I'm going to show us sort of the way I would expect my younger son to solve this, which is probably through guess and check. If I make this first one, where I've got A, if I make that a 1, then this has to be 9. Uh, Over here, this guy has to be 9. We're at my B. And I'm kind of getting super messy here. So I'm actually going to take some of this off, simplify it a little bit. All right, so if I let this guy be 1 and this guy's 9, then I have 19. That's great. And I know for C here that that's going to have to be 4 because I knew that those two added to 5. So I've got 13 there. And then D, I could either look at 23 or 17. I could look at the row or the column. I know that I need 4 more, right? 4 more should get me there. 4, because I needed 13 and I put a 9 in there, so I knew I had 4 left over. And 4 plus 4 is 8, so I think I actually might have gotten a little bit lucky here. And my very first guess worked out, but I didn't check all my answers, but that's all right. When you're done, click check. We got it. Amazing. Now, if I had a few wrong, I'm going to put in some random numbers here and assume that I'm not going to get them right. Lots of 3s, Binford's law. It'll tell me not quite, and I have the ability to try again, or I can see what the answers really were and click new game. If it is something that's a little too hard, you can always just go through and click new game, kind of go through the motions until you find one that you like. So I hope the little boy who is loving these puzzles enjoys this game, and I hope you do too.